Miami Book Fair celebrates Mame, Gary Herman, and the Guncle in Steven Rowley's new novel. Recently, Queer News Tonight lead anchor Al Ferguson sat down with author Steven Rowley to discuss his new book, The Guncle, and his appearance at the Miami Book Fair this week. They discuss how having a guncle, or gay uncle for those of a certain age, can change the life of someone who is coming to terms with their sexuality, as well as how pop culture icons shape the narrative of the book.
This evening, Queer News Tonight has a special interview with Steven Rowley, featuring his book, The Guncle. He is a featured author at the nation's largest book event, the Miami Book Fair, where nearly 400 authors from across the world will gather at Miami-Dade College. Every LGBTQ plus person has heard the phrase Guncle. Love that word. We all have one. Patrick, or gay Uncle Patrick, aka Guncle, loves spending time with his niece and nephew. But when tragedy strikes and he has to take on the role of primary guardian, he finds out that parenting isn't as simple as handing out treats and jokes. The Miami Book Fair asks if the LGBTQ plus community even cares about raising children. In this book, and then we asked, do you want to help parent other family members' children? It's a fascinating subject that we love to explore. So we welcome Steven Rowley and welcome to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be at the book fair in just a week's time.
Yeah, we're thrilled. You come from a very sister-like city of ours, Palm Springs. Everybody here in Fort Lauderdale loves Palm Springs, and I know Palm Springs loves Fort Lauderdale. When you got the news, Steven, that you were going to be invited to the Miami Book Fair, I'm curious, what was your reaction about it? You're a long way away.
I'm a long way away, and I've hadn't had the opportunity to visit Florida for quite some time. In fact, you know, I sort of made a joke that I'd put my foot down after the election of 2000. And while I'm not sure,
you're still bitter on Gore v. Bush?
I know, right?
Seriously?
Which will tell you how long a gay person can hold a grudge. That is not. I just haven't had the opportunity to come. But now that I'm coming, I was sort of thinking, is now the moment to take my foot off the gas of my grudge for Florida politics? But I think there are so many incredible people in the state of Florida, and it shows you, in every sort of red area, there's massive pockets of blue people fighting the good fight, and and certainly they will congregate around something like a book fair. There's lots of discussions about banning books now again, which is sort of tragic to me. So anytime I can show up to advocate for books and for reading diverse authors, I want to be there and lend my voice to that chorus.
You know, we always joke at Queer News Tonight, and I think nationally, lots of people make the joke that Florida is the freak show state. And your participation as an LGBT gay man and your book, The Guncle, is proof of that. You're coming to a place that is decidedly red, has Ron DeSantis as its governor, who's going to take on Donald Trump, which is the other crazy that we have in the state, to run for president in 24. And you write this book in an era where we're banning books left and right in our state, and we're managing conversation and limiting authors and preventing identity discussion and then you're going to come and participate in the biggest book fair in America. We're the freak show state, literally. Tell me a little
I'm going to come and let my freak flag fly then.
Exactly.
So
Excellent.
I'll plant my own flag next
time. And what's funny about that, I always joke with my friends in Palm Springs and West Hollywood. We always make the joke, moniker here in Walton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, that this is the gayest place on planet Earth. We do have a few rivals, and you're sitting in one of those cities that is the rival of the gayest place on planet Earth. So we already know a lot about you, Steven, a lot about you. Tell us a bit about the book. I've heard about the Guncle all my life. Tell us about the inspiration of writing the Guncle.
Sure. So it was a convergence of a few things. I'm glad we don't have to start with defining Guncle. I think everyone tuned in today sort of has heard that term or knows where that slang came from.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a couple things. It was a lifelong love of Mame. First the Patrick Dennis novel from the mid-50s, which became a Broadway show, and then a movie with Rosalind Russell, and then a Broadway musical with dearly departed Angela Lansbury, and then a movie musical with a miscast Lucille Ball. And then,
Stephen, can I interrupt you just a moment? Because I do want to hear every word of this, of the inspiration. But to the viewing audience, if there was any doubt that you were gay when you're quoting Auntie Mame, wait, you've identified your expertise in this subject. I just point that out. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt
thank you. Yeah, I'll lead with my bona fides there by quoting Auntie Mame. And then also, I don't have children of my own. I was married last year, but we don't have kids. But I do in real life have 5 nieces and nephews. And I was profoundly moved by how important those relationships were to me, not only as a gay man, but also as an artist. I think as a writer, I was always very aware that no matter how you feel about it, having and raising children is one of life's great emotional experiences. And I was aware as a writer of not having that in my arsenal. And so it sort of gave me a chance to write, to celebrate some of the incredible LGBTQ plus families that are out there raising kids, but also allow me to speak on the subject, because there's a little, armchair quarterbacking that I wanted to do.
Is there any chance that Jerry Herman version of the Guncle could be rewritten to tell the Mame story? Do you think that might be in the future?
Perhaps, I would love to see this as a musical version of this or a stage version of this. That would be, truly a full circle moment. But I was really fascinated by, Patrick Dennis, who wrote that novel, was closeted, came out later in his life, at least as bisexual, and then died fairly young, tragically young. But there were a lot of writers in the mid-century, Tennessee Williams springs to mind, or people who perhaps wrote larger than life women as stand-ins for gay men, which they couldn't openly write about at that time. And so it was funny now that times have changed to sort of think of this as an intellectual exercise too, to reclaim one of these characters that might have originally been conceived as a gay man if he were allowed openly to write that way at the time.
It's sad to me. Gosh, what a fantastic point that you just made in terms of writing in the closet, which is what I just heard you say. Even in this story, on the straight woman version of Mame, it's shocking to me that so many people in our community don't know Jerry Herman and Jerry Herman's music. It's the exact same thing. While he was not in the closet, at the end of the day, ends up in the closet if we don't continue to tell the story of the history of Jerry Herman and why the Mame story is so important. I'm curious, Stephen, when you're writing this process, did it take a long time to do, first off?
This one came pretty naturally to me because one, I had some, it's not source material. This is an original story. The inspiration maybe was Mame and whatnot, but I was writing from a lot of personal experience as well with my own relationships with my nieces and nephews. And so this one, came pretty easily to me. It's fun. The book is very much a comedy, but it tackles some serious subjects too, grief particularly, and writing about grief in children. These children lose their mother, and their uncle has to take them in for the summer, which sort of leads to a season of healing for all 3, because he's a character who's been grieving the loss of his boyfriend for some time. And so getting that balance of heartbreak and humor just right, that's what took time, with a project like this. In Mame, she sent her nephew off to boarding school and sort of sidestepped the whole issue of grief and grieving. And grieving it's just such a part of our fabric and our culture right now, particularly after the past couple of years we've had.
Especially for LGBT.
especially for LGBT. And so I don't, I didn't want to take the easy way out on that. I wanted to confront some of the grief and write seriously about it, but while maintaining all the humor and the sort of larger than life whimsy that this story has.
I'm curious, Steven, you live in Palm Springs. It's a very well-known older LGBT community. Lots and lots and lots of men in their 50s and their 60s. What was your friends' reactions to the theme about the Guncle as you're writing the book and you're exploring it? What do you see from your friends around you?
That's a very interesting question. For me, I turned 50 over the pandemic. I feel like I haven't celebrated it yet. I feel like I should get a do-over because I haven't been able to really.
And we're gay after all, so we always get to celebrate twice.
Right? Exactly. Birthdays, always feel like the Olympics. We should get an opening ceremony, a few weeks of events, and then to close it down. But I've been out for 30 years now, and I think when I first came out in the very early 1990s, more men were dying of AIDS than even in the 80s, and so I thought life would be very lonely and sad and quite possibly short. And as I turned 50, I was reflecting back on how joyous life has been and how full of community and comparatively long it's been, and I really celebrate that. And so I have older friends who look at this book, with a bit of wistfulness, and I have younger friends who are raising kids and grew up where marriage was a possibility, and definitions of family was something that they had more control over writing for themselves. And so I feel like I'm sort of in this sandwich generation, and seeing responses to the books from both older and younger people is just so rewarding and fascinating, and it's been very emotional.
I'm curious to that point in your research and the input that you take in developing the storyline, etc. Do you think most LGBT community, but especially gay men, want to be the Guncle, or they don't want to be the Guncle? What's your experience?
Listen, I think Guncle is yes. I think that not only is it just the sort of portmanteau of two words here, gay and uncle, but there's a connotation of a larger than life personality, a sort of fabulousness to it, right? So many of us who have nieces and nephews, we live in, we've left our families, we live in big cities, we fly in for holidays. Certainly for me, my nieces and nephews see me. I don't go to an office or have a traditional job like other adults they know. I live in California. They know I have a swimming pool. Like, I'm an object of fascination for them. And I think a lot of gay men like sort of being that object of fascination, being able to be that fun relative, that quirky relative who can, fly in on a wind and out on the next one. Now I'm jumping over to Mary Poppins, but it's not a bad reference for this book either. But still having children of their own, that's still a very personal decision for a lot.
Yeah, and also Steven, with the world that we're living in, Florida has coined it our political leadership of people like Governor DeSantis and here in Florida, and Governor Abbott in Texas, and others around the country. They've made you and I and our community the butt of a culture war, and developing culture war to win elections, gain power, and make money. And one of the phrases that have been front and center here in Florida, it's a really hard one, but I think about it as it relates to, as you speak about how you interact with children and family members around you, this word groomer, and how we are predatory. As you're writing a book like this that is funny and positive, and we get to celebrate all the best about us, what do you think about what we're watching in our world and the dark edges that are all around us?
Yeah, and here I am talking about these very serious subjects as the author of a book that is, ostensibly a comedy. And I wish we could just come together and laugh, but there are these dark forces, as you say, and it hurts. It's painful because I'm able to see the difference that this has had. So the book came out in hardcover in May of 2021, so about a year and a half ago. And for the first 9 months, 10 months of the book's existence, I didn't have any pushback. And then the don't say gay bill and everything, all that, and the whipping up of the culture wars. When the book came out in paperback, suddenly I was being attacked on Twitter as a groomer. If you see the cover of the book, which you have up now, there's a man in a caftan, but ostensibly a dress, leading children where, I don't know, to a life of sin. I'm sure they imagine, and so. And yet it couldn't be further from the truth. He is the most generous, most loving, character with these kids, and really let the kids be their most authentic selves. And so, it's been painful, for me to have to play whack-a-mole online sometimes with this, hateful people that pop up and want to attack me. My reaction, I'm quick on the block feature, but my reaction is it's so boring. It's so boring. It's not, these are the same arguments and the same slurs and the same attacks that we've been facing for decades now. And it was like, you're not even original enough to come up with something new. You can't, it's just, it's so dull. And it's so, I think to most people, most good people nowadays, so obviously not true that there are beautiful, diverse families raising kids now. And there are wonderful LGBTQ educators and people working in schools. And these are heroes that need to be lifted up, and never, ever trust anyone willing to step on the backs of someone less vulnerable than they are to seize power. Absolutely. These people are the worst of the worst.
It's interesting. I was smiling frequently there as you're discussing this dark edge of the topic that's going on in America, and I was just rolling over and over and over again in my head Anita Bryant and that moment. And I have always loved.
Hold on, I'll get my pie.
I have always loved fruit pies my whole life. It just seems like in Florida we need a couple of really good fruit pies to deal with.
Absolutely. I'll pack one, in my
when
in
you
my
come down
suitcase
to
when I
Miami
come
to
next
the book
week.
fair.
Yeah.
Excellent. The pressing issue that I've got to ask you about this book as the author of The Guncle, the pressing issue that has to be adjudicated, Rosalind Russell or Lucille Ball? Which one?
Rosalind Russell for me all the way. All the way.
I'm sorry. You're so incorrect, Stephen. It's Lucille
Oh,
Ball.
really?
Sorry to
Okay. We're gonna have to debate this further. Yeah.
All right. Well, Stephen, tell us the book. It sounds so much fun. It does, and I know that's what you wanted to accomplish. We have so much to share. If we don't have children, us helping our families and others with their children, with our gay men and the entire community has so much to share. How do we go about getting your book? Where do you recommend?
Sure. The book is out in paperback now, so it can really be picked up anywhere books are sold. I know that independent bookstores, if you have a good independent bookstore in your community and you can and are able to support that, I know they'd be so grateful. It's been, a tough couple years for small businesses and independent businesses. And so I always love to have people support their independent bookstore because they do so much for communities, not just sell books, but bring programming and authors and allow me to travel and come visit, as well as so many other authors. And so they're great resources for the community. But anywhere you can buy books, you can find The Guncle.
Yeah, The Guncle. As I said, it sounds so much fun. And the hallmark of any good Guncle is making great recommendations to their friends that they're counseling and advising. So as I ask The Guncle, Palm Springs or West Hollywood, which is it?
Now you're pitting me against two, but I will say Palm Springs. Yeah, I'm breaking up here. What? No, I love Palm Springs. It's my home now. It's where the Guncle actually takes place. It's such a character in the book. I love Palm Springs right now. Nothing against West Hollywood, but Los Angeles itself has some wonderful other queer spaces too, particularly on the east side of town, and downtown has an emerging queer scene too, which I like as an alternative to West Hollywood as well.
Yes,
so
that's very politician-ish of you. Congratulations.
Maybe I'll run for office one day.
We can't wait for to welcome you to South Florida and your first visit to South Florida. The Mame Book Fair, as I indicated at the top of the conversation with Steven, we're really a contradiction in this hard, at times even hateful red place called Florida. He's coming down to a place that is discussing not allowing people to have access to books or even banning them. And at the same time, the biggest book event in America goes on in the exact same place. So it's an interesting place, Steven, that I think you're going to find of great interest to you. So make sure you go out and buy that book, The Guncle, Steven Rowley. And we thank you very much. It's been very entertaining to listen to your perspective here on Queer News Tonight.
We got into it, but I promise the book is a comedy too. So pick it up and you'll have plenty of laughs as well.
Crystal clear.
Good.
You laughed at my pie joke, so it's definitely
I know.
Thank you, Steven Rowley.
That whipped cream and get my fruit pie ready to go. Thank you so much for having me.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.